We are in the middle of a series called How Growth Happens. If it's your first time here, maybe first time watching online, welcome to those of you tuning in that way. We're not going to really cover anything about this series. We've covered 2 weeks already. If you want to catch up to speed with what we've talked about, which I highly suggest you do, you can go look at the first 2 messages on our YouTube channel about those things. But anyway, we're going to kind of go on from there. Now, if you have been coming to this church for more than a couple months, this will not be news to you. But if you're new here, let me share something about myself. I love to play guitar. Okay, that's my thing. That's my hobby. That's just kind of a big aspect of my life is playing guitar. And it really started back in 7th grade when my mom got me a guitar as a Christmas gift. And when I got that guitar, man, it's no understatement to say my life really changed, you know? It became like this driving force of who I was, the major thing that I kind of did with my life, especially first starting off and learning, you know, and I didn't know anything about guitar or music. And so there's just hours of time that go into that. At 2, 3, 4 hours a day, I would spend just memorizing chords or, you know, trying to figure out like, you know, how to get better calluses, or there's this whole new world of bands and guitarists I never knew before that I got to discover and learn all their music. And it was an awesome time. Fast forward a couple of years, in 10th grade, my family moves up to Minnesota from Ohio. And it was here that I first, is that like thunder? What is that noise? It's the presence of God. Is it this mic? It's the Holy Spirit. That's not how he usually talks to me, but you never know. So, everything else is muted. Right? Yeah, okay. Well, we'll just get through it, I guess. So, that's not my stomach rumbling. Okay, that's something else. There's a special place in hell for church sound equipment. I've heard that for years, and like, it's just becoming more and more true. So, anyway, we moved to Minnesota. That's where I first start playing in bands with other musicians. That was cool. I was in a ska band in high school. Anybody know what ska is? Yeah, 3 of us. Okay, so I was in a ska band. It was awesome. We actually won a battle of the bands together with me and some of my friends. That was cool. I was in a couple garage bands, you know, just hanging out, playing graduation parties, whatever. It was about that same time that I first started getting involved in church as well. And so I was a part of the youth group, worship team, and playing songs and all that sort of thing week in and week out. Fast forward a couple more years, at the ripe old age of 19, I am hired on at the church as the worship leader, actually here. And so that's just more guitar stuff. You know, not only was this my hobby and something fun, but like now it gets to be my job and, you know, planning songs and playing all the time and leading other people and, you know, switching from acoustic guitar to electric guitar. Like it was just a huge part of my life for so long. It was not uncommon for me to just play guitar, you know, 6 days of the week. However, as I look back at the last 10 years of my life or so, something's changed. I no longer find myself kind of doing that. It's very rare for me today to just go pick up a guitar off my wall and play it for even 10 minutes. And it's not that I have any less passion for guitar. When I look inside, man, that passion is stronger than ever. I have more guitars than I've ever owned before. My guitar rig sounds better than it ever has before. I'm technically probably the best at my instrument than I've ever been from just years of practice and learning music theory and all that sort of stuff. But very rarely do I just sit down and actually play guitar. And as I've thought about why that is, I think a huge part of that, obviously I'm in a different stage in life, you know, married, kids, worship leader's not my job anymore sort of thing. But a big part of the reason why I just don't play anymore is because I've got nobody to play with. I mean, every once in a while, you know, the Bearded Boys, the dad band I'm in, we'll get together and do some stuff. But like that's once a year and just kind of screwing around more than anything else. The last time I really seriously sat down to play guitar as like a regular practice was preparing for a Bearded Boys show last summer. And the last time I really seriously played guitar before that was the Bearded Boys show the summer before. Like, I just don't have a lot of opportunities to play with other people, and without somebody to play with or a reason to play, or like this camaraderie, this band sort of element, I find myself, my passion is still there. I think I love guitar. I still look at them, but it's missing a piece. And I don't know if this is the best word to describe it, but it kind of goes with the series, so we're going to use it, okay? It's this accountability piece. When there are other band members I'm playing with, or if I'm preparing for a show, it's got to be more than just, I want to do this. It's the help and relationships of other people that I find is what makes me play guitar now more often than anything else. There's an accountability of other people there that kind of leads me to do that action. And this is true in so many different areas of life. Okay, it's not just with my hobby. Any of us that you know, we want to lose weight, or we want to get healthier, we want to exercise more. This is a key component of that, having accountability with other people. I have tried to lose weight on my own more times than I can even remember. Okay, countless number of times. The only time I was even moderately successful at it was when my wife and I were going on a vacation with another couple to Mexico, and we all wanted to lose weight together. Okay, none of us wanted to be at the beach, you know, just looking like we were in January sort of thing. So we committed to one another. We're going to lose weight. We're going to eat different. We're going to go on this like low carb keto sort of plan. And we kept each other accountable. Hey, did you cheat today? No, I didn't. Are you going to eat this nasty food? Yep, I'm going to eat it too. Okay, no butter. Yeah, okay, no butter. Blah, gross, you know. And we actually did. We lost weight. We accomplished for the first time in my life. I dropped like 15 or 20 pounds in just a couple months. Now, it didn't stay off because this didn't stay there. But man, for those couple months before Mexico, it was there. It made a difference. And this is scientific fact, okay? This is proven time and time again in studies. Whether it's a workout buddy, whether it's someone we just want to go running with, all the way to like a personal trainer that we hire, this makes a huge difference in whether or not we're going to achieve our health goals. Again, the desire has to be inside. A personal trainer is not going to make us do it. But there have been plenty of scientific research done to show that when we have accountability in this, when we work out with somebody else, we work out more often, we push ourselves further, we have more fun doing it, we are prone to injure ourselves less often. There are so many benefits. If you've ever tried to lose weight alone, you know how tough it can be. But if you've ever tried to do it with somebody else, you know how, not that it's easy, right? But how much better that experience can be. Same thing is true if you've been through any sort of recovery program, any sort of 12-step program. The value of a sponsor is undeniable. That we can want to get sober, we can want to get clean, but trying to stay that way on our own is darn near impossible for anyone else. I mean, maybe there's a few outliers that can do it, but most of us, we need help from other people. And whether that's, again, a sponsor, somebody in our household to go through it with us, it is amazing how much more successful we become at recovery, at clean sobriety, when there's some accountability built in. If we want to grow in any area of our life, this piece right here is undeniable. It doesn't make the growth happen, but it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest help that there is towards us accomplishing our goals. But here's the odd thing. We know how well this works in other areas of life. Most of us could probably even share a story about it. But yet, many of us in this church, many of us in American Christianity, we ignore this principle when it comes to spiritual growth. Don't we? We ignore how valuable other people can be when it comes to our relationship with God. And I think it's probably just a part of our, like rugged American individualism. I can do what I want, pull myself. I don't need help from anybody else. We've freed ourselves from Britain. I could do it all. Yeah, maybe in some things, but this is such a key component of spiritual growth. We just kind of all have adopted this idea, this attitude towards spiritual maturity that I can do it on my own. I can be close to God on my own. I can stay connected to God on my own. I can grow in my faith alone. Hold on, time out, because I'm not so sure that's the case. If there's no one else in our lives who value being a part of a local church, I'm not sure you and I can sustain being a part of a local church very much on our own. If there's no one else in our lives who values talking to God and seeking God's wisdom and presence in our lives, we can have the best intentions in the world, but that is extremely difficult to maintain on our own. We like to approach our faith as like this private sort of matter because we've bought into this idea from culture. Just keep your faith to yourself. Nobody else needs to be involved. Don't share your faith. You don't need anybody else. And like, time out. I'm not so sure that's the best option for us, because here's what I've seen happen time and time again. I've been involved in ministry at some sort of level for almost 20 years now at this point, seen a lot of people come and go, and it breaks my heart to say this and to think about it. But I have seen people who were once totally sold out to God, totally passionate about their relationship with God, wanting to grow, involved in the mission, all sorts of different things. But as soon as they left this piece, by all outward appearances, their spiritual growth stopped. When people leave the church, leave a small group, don't engage with Christian friends anymore, don't get around to talk about the Bible or pray with one another, when this piece goes away, oftentimes, I want to say 100% of the time, I'm not the judge, but by all outward appearances, we either slow or stall or stop our spiritual growth. It just happens. We like to think we're strong. I like to think I'm strong. We all have this like little bit of pride inside that says, no, I can do it. I'm telling you, experience says time and time again, no, we can't. We need to have accountability, relationships, connections with at least a few other people who can help us grow in our relationship with God. The desire has to start within us, but we need the help of others. The protection is in the people. The author of Hebrews writes about this several times in his letter, really from kind of both sides of the coin. And I want to read through them this morning because I love what he says, and there's such great truth for our lives that we ought to pay attention to. He starts off in chapter 3 by saying this: "Be careful then, dear brothers and sisters." You know what you and I should do anytime we read these words? We should be careful. It's not a trick question. Like if we read "be careful," then you and I should sit up a little straighter, lean in a little more. If we're reading it so often, if you read the Bible regularly, I'm going to get through Hebrews chapter 3 today. Good, put it away. No, this should be like hold on, pause. Hold on, don't miss this. Hold on, don't just breeze by this. This is a warning for all of us. We all need to be careful, dear brothers and sisters. Why? Make sure that your own hearts are not evil. That seems weird, doesn't it? I don't feel like my heart's evil. Do you feel like your heart's evil? That doesn't seem like something to be aware of. Okay, but be careful. Make sure that your own hearts are not unbelieving. My heart's not unbelieving. I mean, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. Why do I have to be worried about that? Hey, be careful. Brothers and sisters, all of us, be careful. Make sure that your own hearts are not turning you away from the living God. Isn't that odd? Who wants to turn away from God? Isn't kind of the point of this whole series, how do we grow closer to God? How do we develop our relationship with Him? How do we move closer to God? Why in the world would the writer of Hebrews say we need to be careful about these things? Evil hearts, unbelieving hearts. That's not what we want. Why would he write this? Because there's a danger for any one of us to drift. None of us are exempt from this. In fact, he goes on to say what we should do instead. If we don't want to drift, if we don't want our hearts to turn away from God, then you must warn each other There's the accountability part. There's the relationship piece. Warn each other every day while it is still today. Why? So that none of you will be deceived by sin. Any one of us can be deceived. Any one of us can miss it, can subtly drift away, deceived by sin or anything that would distract us from God, and hardened against God. The writer of Hebrews says, hey, every one of us, we need to be careful for something. If God is over here, right, if this is the direction we want to head, we're moving towards you, Father. Here's what happens anyway. He says, be careful that you don't slowly start to drift this way. It's so small, you don't even notice it. Be careful that your hearts don't start to harden against God. Be careful that you don't get distracted from God. Be careful that you don't actually pull further away from God. None of us want to do that, but he says the way that we can prevent that is by warning each other, by accountability, by having some people in our lives who can notice when we start to drift, by having some people in our lives who love us enough to say, hey, have you been spending time with God lately? Hey, I noticed this in your life. Can we talk about it? Hey, I noticed that maybe you're struggling with this certain area. Can we pray together, warning each other? We need accountability with one another. He says a little bit later on in Hebrews chapter 12, he says, look after each other. This faith thing is not something that we do in isolation. This relationship with God is not just a private thing. It's with one another's. Why? Look after so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. I don't want no poisonous root of bitterness, but we need to watch out for each other. Somebody's got to watch out for me because it can happen easily. And somebody's got to watch out for you because it can happen so easily. We need people that when we start to move this way, who can pull us back lovingly, caringly, maybe sometimes even throw us over the shoulder, but who can keep us from drifting away in our relationship with God. Because just like me and guitar, without help from other people, every single one of us, there is a danger, a warning that we need to be careful of. Every one of us can drift. So part of this accountability is pulling us back, but there's another part as well. It's pushing us forward. That maybe when we've stalled out, or maybe there are other people who can push us towards God, who can encourage us towards God. In chapter 10, he writes this, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm. For God can be trusted to keep his promise. We all say amen. Yep, that's what we want. I want to hold tightly to my faith. I want to hold tightly to my relationship with God. I want to keep moving his direction. Okay, cool. We can have the best intentions in the world to do that. But how does that happen? What can we do to actually bring that about? It's accountability system. It's other people. It's relationships and connections. So if that's the goal, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do. As what's become so common in our world and culture today, we don't need to meet together. We don't need to do that church thing. We don't need to be around each other. Watch out, especially as some people do, but encourage one another now that the day of his return is drawing near. Being right with God by putting our trust in what Jesus did is a private decision, okay? Nobody else can make that for us. But living out our faith, growing in a relationship with God, all that's not private at all. Christianity is not a solo sport. We have to do it together. Like I said, the protection is in the people. This one another stuff, motivate one another, encourage one another. This one anothering is a huge part of Christianity. In fact, over 100 times just in the New Testament alone, we are encouraged to something one another, to pray for one another, to love one another, to forgive one another, to encourage, to motivate one another. Why? Because we need one another. If we want to keep developing our relationship with God, experiencing Him more, sensing His direction, growing in our spiritual maturity, we need to have other people hold us accountable. We need relationships. We need connection. We need honesty. We need this teamwork and camaraderie with each other. Accountability is it's about as non-negotiable as you can possibly get, at least if we want to grow, if we want to move the right direction, if we want to stay healthy. We've got to have this. So let me ask the elephant in the room question. Do you have someone? Do you have someone, or maybe even a couple people in your life who hold you accountable in your relationship with God? Do you have some people who are pulling you and pushing you to experience God more, to trust Him more, to follow His direction more, to spend time with Him more? Do you have anybody like that? I would hope, it would certainly be the easiest if we have those people in our families, especially the people that we live with. I would hope that if you're married, your spouse could do that, or maybe if you live with a sibling, or your parents are with you or something, that maybe they could be ones that you can have conversations with, around the dinner table or bonfire or something like that, that these would be a regular part of your kind of family talks. Is how are you growing? What's God doing in your life? Those sorts of things. That would be great if that could happen, but reality is it's not possible for many of us. And even sometimes, family can get weird, and we don't want to be as honest. Maybe there's some strife going on. So outside of family, right? Do you have somebody? I think that's one of the benefits of showing up here in person. Online is a great option when you can't be here in person, but there's something different about showing up to worship together, to pray together, to hear biblical truth together, to challenge one another, even just to see each other passing in the lobby. It's become so common to neglect meeting together, but yet the Bible says, don't neglect meeting together. Especially, I know for some of us, we work in offices or wherever, and none of our coworkers are Christian, and maybe nobody in our family is Christian, and maybe the people on our block, our neighbors, aren't Christian. When we get an opportunity to come together as a church, that sense of loneliness, or that sense of, man, does anybody else care about God? That's diminished some just by us being together. Even just quick hi, walking in and walking out, is better than nothing. If you don't have a plan for accountability in your life, showing up regularly is a good first step. But these sorts of the relational level it takes to do this is probably something that you and I can only do with one or two other people, maybe three at most. So do you have someone like that? More than just walking into a church, more than just somebody that you post Bible verses on Facebook with. Do you have somebody where they know your name, they know your story, they know your past, they know your sins, they know your triggers, they know your warning lights, they know mistakes, and they know your goals for where you want to be? Do you have somebody like that? If you want to grow spiritually, if we want to develop our relationship with God, we got to get that. And as a church, we can't make that happen for any of us, not me, not you. But what we can do as a church is try and provide the best opportunities and environments where hopefully that can happen. And as we've thought about it, looked at a lot of different things, what we've landed on as a church, at least right now, subject to change in the future, but what we've landed on right now is this thing called small groups. And I'm just going to let you know, everybody online, the rest of this is a shameless advertisement for small groups. Okay? I'm not trying to pull a fast one over anybody. I'm not, I'd rather be open and honest with you. This is about small groups, because When you and I mean, in a room this big of 100, 150 people, we can't know each other's names and stories and all those sorts of things. But in a group of 8 to 12, where maybe you find those one or two key friendships, relationships, man, that can start to happen. And these relationships can start to be built. And in groups of 8 to 12, we have these opportunities to share stories and insights and what happened in our week and, how we, come to understand more of God's character, all of those sorts of things. I am telling you, small groups are the best option to have this hopefully come out of it. And my goal for every one of us is that we would all be in a small group. That's every single one of us. Not for me, not for our staff, not for some, Excel spreadsheet number sort of thing, but just because it is important for all of us to have some people in our lives who can walk with us, who can challenge us, who can pull us, who can push us, who can motivate us, who can encourage us to grow in our relationship with God. And small groups seems to be the best way to do that. If you've been around for a while, you've heard us talk about small groups before. There's nothing new I can say, but if you're new here, I know how scary it can be to what the heck? He wants me to go to someone's house and knock on a door and I don't know these people. We have tried to make it as simple and pain-free to join a group as possible, okay? All of our small groups are starting new studies in February, 3 weeks from now. Okay, it's not an accident that we're talking about it right now, and a new trimester begins in February. You're not going to walk in on some study that's been going on for 7 years and you miss the first 463 pages of the book. That's not going to happen, okay? All of our small groups are supposed to end their studies in May so that you don't feel like you're locked in for life and I can never leave. Now, I hope that we find some lifelong friends. That's the point, is that we develop it. But none of us are stuck, okay? It's not like you sign up for one and you're just condemned to that group forever. That's not the case. We have a directory on the online hub of different groups and men's groups and women's groups, and if they have childcare, what day they meet, where they meet, all of our small group facilities. I know sometimes we have this fear like, man, if I show up, they're going to make me pray out loud. Well, they're going to make me read the Bible out loud. No. Our facilitators know not to. You don't have to pray out loud. You don't have to read the Bible out loud. You don't have to share your deepest, darkest, most embarrassing sin on week 1 unless you're a part of my group. So, that's a joke, kind of. You don't have to do that. Okay, listen, I know inside every one of us, because it's inside me too, we all say, no, I don't have to do that. Okay, it sounds good. It sounds like a great idea, but I think I can do it on my own, right? What do we got to lose? Do we want to grow or do we want to not? Because this is one of the best tools available, is having connections, relationships with other people, this accountability to keep us moving in the right direction. But I want to warn you, and I want you to think that joining a small group is a magic pill, because it's not. If you decide to join a group, which I hope you do, but I can almost guarantee it's not like you're going to go 2 times and just magically you found the person and you're open and honest and vulnerable and this is great and I'm good to go. It's going to take some hard work. It's going to take some effort on our part, because relationship is what we're after. And relationships take work. Relationships take time. It's going to take time to get to know somebody and have them get to know you and know their heart and know their background and know, their attitude and all those sorts of things. And it might take months, okay? I just want you to be aware, it might take months. It might even take a year or so to get to a point where you can have somebody else hold you accountable. But is it worth it or not? Do we want to grow or not? Do we want to put up some protection in place, or do we just want to ride on good intentions? Relationships are hard because in order to really be accountable with one another, we got to be open and honest with one another. And the first week, we talked about being open and honest with God, just kind of bearing our souls before Him. This is that, but just with another human being. And that's risky, man. That's risky to open ourselves up and invite somebody to see all the the secrets and the dark corners and to challenge us. This iron sharpening iron sort of thing can be painful, but it is so worth it. Accountability is such a key part. In James, we're encouraged as Christians to confess our sins to one another. Ugh. I don't want to do that here for sure, okay? That would be very uncomfortable. But with a couple trusted people, I could. With a couple trusted people, you could. Why? Because we know there's there's safety there, there's care, there's love, and when we confess to one another, we can pray for one another. And not just, oh yeah, I'll pray for you in thought, but like actually pray, come together. Let's ask God to move in your life. In Galatians, this accountability thing looks like we're instructed to share our burdens with one another. You know what burdens are? Burdens are heavy. Burdens are a load. I don't even want to, sometimes we don't even want to admit to people we've got a burden. That's part of moving together, growing in our relationship with God. Sometimes I think, you know what, maybe we're still inside. I don't need that. I don't need that. Okay, even if that's the case, what if you could join a group to help someone else stay accountable in their relationship with God? What if you could be the person to help someone else? In Jude, we're instructed to have mercy with people whose faith is wavering. What if you could be the person to show patience and forgiveness and mercy and encouragement and motivation for somebody else to keep pursuing God? Wouldn't that be awesome? I think it would be. I need this day. I have been a Christian for 22 years of my life. I need this just as much today as I ever have. And every one of us, I believe, are in the same boat. So what are we going to do about it? So we're going to wrap up today by listening to a song, watching a video and listening to a song. It's by a guy named Christian Stanfill, and he just released this song a couple months ago. And there was a situation in his life where he had some secret things hidden that came to light, kind of spilled out onto some other relationships. And he found the value of his wife, a couple other people who loved him through that struggle, who held him accountable, who loved him in it and then held him accountable to keep growing. And he writes this song out of that experience. And we're just going to watch the video and just listen. And here's my goal for every one of us, is that we would hear this honesty in the way he sings in the lyrics, but more than that you and I, that all of us would come to the same conclusion that he did. The song is called We Need People. Let's listen to it.